A poor woodcutter and his wife had 2 children named Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel were very sad. Soon their father remarried, but their stepmother was a very cruel woman. One day she took the children deep into the forest and left them there. Clever Hansel had some breadcrumbs in his pocket and had dropped them on the way so that they could find their way back home. Alas, the birds ate all the crumbs and they couldn't find the path back to home. Hansel and Gretel went deeper and deeper into the forest. They were very hungry and very tired. Finally, after walking for what seemed like miles and miles, they saw a cottage made of chocolate, candies, and cake.
"Look, Hansel, a chocolate brick!"
shouted Gretel in delight, and both ate it hungrily. Now a wicked witch lived there. When she saw Hansel and Gretel, she wanted to eat them. She grabbed the children and locked them in a cage. The witch decided to make a soup out of Hansel and eat him first. She began boiling a huge pot of water for the soup. Then Gretel crept out of her cage. She gave the wicked witch a mighty push from behind, and the witch fell into the boiling water. She howled in pain. Hansel and Gretel found treasure lying around the cottage. They carried it home with them, and their father welcomed them back with tears of joy. They never went hungry again, and they all lived happily ever after. Once upon a time there lived a poor widow and her son Jack. One day, Jack's mother told him to sell their cow. Jack went to the market, and on the way he met a man who wanted to buy his cow. Jack asked,
"What will you give me in return for my cow?"
The man answered,
"I will give you 5 magic beans."
Jack took the magic beans and gave the man the cow. But when he reached home, Jack's mother was very angry. She said,
"You fool! He took away your cow and gave you some beans?"
She threw the beans out of the window. Jack was very sad and went to sleep without dinner. The next day, when Jack woke up in the morning and looked out of the window, he saw that a huge beanstalk had grown from his magic beans. He climbed up the beanstalk and reached a kingdom in the sky. There lived a giant and his wife and his dog. Jack went inside the house and found the giant's wife in the kitchen. Jack said,
"Could you please give me something to eat? I'm so hungry."
The kind wife gave him bread and some milk. While he was eating, the giant came home. The giant was very big and looked very fearsome. Jack was terrified and went to hide inside. The giant cried, "Fee-fi-fo-fum! I smell the blood of an Englishman. I'll grind his bones to make my bread." The wife said,
"There is no boy here."
So the giant ate his food and then went to his room. He took out his sacks of gold coins and counted them and kept them aside for later. Then, after he had done this, he fell fast asleep. In the night, Jack crept outside of his hiding place, took 1 sack of gold coins and climbed down the beanstalk. At his home, he gave the coins to his mother. His mother was very happy, and they lived well for some time. He climbed the beanstalk and went to the giant's house once again. And then Jack asked the giant's wife for food. But while he was eating, the giant returned. Jack leapt up in fright and went and hid under the bed. The giant cried, "Fee-fi-fo-fum! I smell the blood of an Englishman. I'll grind his bones to make my bread." The wife said,
"There is no boy here."
The giant ate his food and went to his room as always. There he took out a hen. He shouted, "Lay!" And the hen laid a golden egg. When the giant fell to sleep, Jack took the hen and climbed down the beanstalk. Jack's mother was very happy with him. After some days, Jack once again climbed the beanstalk and went to the giant's castle. For the third time, Jack met the giant's wife and asked for some food. Once again, the giant's kind wife gave him bread and milk. But while Jack was eating, the giant came home. "Feel from I smell the blood of an Englishman. I'll grind his bones to make my bed," cried the giant.
Don't be silly, there's no boy here,
said the wife. The giant had a magical harp that could play beautiful songs. While the giant slept, Jack took the harp and was about to leave. Suddenly, the magic harp cried, "Help me, master! A boy is stealing me!" The giant woke up and saw Jack with the harp. Furious, he ran after Jack, but Jack was too fast for him. The giant followed him down. Jack quickly ran inside of his house and fetched an axe. He began to chop at the beanstalk, and the giant fell. Jack and his mother were now very rich, and they lived happily ever after. Long, long ago, in a house that overlooked a beautiful garden, lived a childless couple. They prayed to God every day to bless them with a child. One day, they found that God had answered their prayers. They were at long last going to have a baby. Their days passed in happiness, but alas, the wife fell ill. She would eat nothing, and the husband was so worried that she would waste away. He tried to tempt her with many good things, but she refused everything.
"But you must eat something, my dear,"
he begged her.
There is a herb called Rapunzel in the garden next door. I will feel better if I eat that,"
she said. The husband's heart sank when he heard her. This garden was owned by a wicked witch who would let no one enter. But he loved his wife very, very much, and so, with a pounding heart, he decided to go into the garden at the time when the witch was away. One day, finding an appropriate time, he went into the garden. He had managed to pluck the herb out of the ground, and was about to leave when the wicked witch came back.
"You thief! How dare you enter my garden?"
She screamed. She threatened to put a curse on him. He fell at her feet and begged,
Please, please don't curse me. If my wife doesn't eat this herb, she's going to have a baby, and she is very ill."
The witch stopped to think a while.
"I will let you go on one condition. You will give me the baby after it's born."
The poor man had no other way out but to agree with her. He took the herb to his wife, and miraculously she soon recovered and gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. But, as per the agreement, the witch came to take the baby away. She took Rapunzel, for that's what she named her, far away and locked her in a high tower. The tower had no doors or stairs. There was only one window on the top. The only person whom Rapunzel ever saw was the wicked witch. Rapunzel grew up to become a beautiful woman with pretty eyes and a beautiful voice, and her golden hair grew very, very, very long. All day long, when Rapunzel was alone, she would sing and weep. Every day the wicked witch came to the tower with food. She stood at the bottom of the tower and shouted,
"Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your hair!"
Rapunzel would drop down her long braided hair through the window. The witch would use the hair as a rope to climb into the tower. One day, a handsome prince was passing by and heard her sing. He fell in love with her voice, and unknown to all who came to the tower every day to hear her sing. One day the prince saw the witch climbing up the tower using Rapunzel's hair. The next day the prince too called out to Rapunzel.
"Let down your hair,"
he said. The prince climbed to the top of the tower. After that, the prince came to meet Rapunzel every night. Alas, the witch soon discovered the prince with Rapunzel. She pushed him from the tower onto a thorny bush, making him blind. She banished Rapunzel into the desert, far, far away. Many years passed. The blind prince wandered alone and finally reached the same desert. One day, he heard a familiar voice singing. Following the sound, he found her. They hugged each other in joy. Tears of happiness rolled down Rapunzel's cheeks. As the tears fell onto the prince's eyes, he regained his vision as if by magic. The prince took Rapunzel to his kingdom, and they lived happily ever after. The Sad Princess. There was once a princess who never laughed. "Whoever can make my daughter laugh can marry her," said the king, who didn't know what else to do. Lots of hopeful young men lined up to try and make the sad princess laugh. First there was a joke teller.
How do you tell which end of a worm is the head? Tickle the middle and see which end laughs,
he said. But that didn't make the princess laugh. Lots of people tried, but nobody could make the princess laugh. The king had almost lost hope when he heard a very strange and unusual sound. He hadn't heard it before, so it took him a while to realize that it was his daughter. And she was laughing! The princess was looking out of the window at a man trying to make his donkey walk. He was pulling the donkey as hard as he could, and still the stubborn donkey would not move at all. The more the donkey refused to move, the more the princess laughed. And so the princess and the donkey owner were married, and they lived a happy and long life together, with many, many laughs. A long time ago, and far, far away, an old woman was sitting in her rocking chair, thinking how happy she would be if she had a child. Then she heard a knock at the door, and it opened. A lady was standing there, and she said,
"If you let me in, I will grant you a wish."
The old woman let the woman in, firstly because she felt pity, secondly because she knew what she'd wish for: a child. After she had washed the lady up and fed her, she saw that she was really beautiful. The lady slept soundly all night long, and then right before she left, she said,
"Now, what about your wish? What do you want?"
The lady thought about most people's wishes: to be the richest in the world, most powerful person, the smartest and the prettiest, But the old woman wished for something a lady could not believe. She said,
I would like a child."
What did you say?
she asked, because she was astonished at what the old lady had asked for. The old lady repeated what she said.
I would like a child."
The lady then placed a tiny seed in the old woman's hand and gave her instructions.
"Plant the seed, water it carefully. watch over it and give it your love. If you do all these things, then you will have a child."
So the old woman did all those things the lady had told her to. In a week there was a beautiful yellow flower in the place of the seed. The next day the flower bloomed. Inside the flower was a beautiful little girl who was the size of the woman's thumb, so she called her Thumbelina. She made her a little dress out of golden threads. Thumbelina slept in a walnut shell and brought the woman joy and happiness. But one day when Thumbelina went for her nap, a frog hopped through the window and said, You'll be a perfect bride for my son." And she took Thumbelina to a lily pad and hopped off to find her son. Thumbelina cried, and some little guppies heard her and chewed the roots off of the lily pad to help her escape. Thumbelina's lily pad floated away. A few hours later, she finally stopped floating. During the summer, she ate berries and drank the dew off the leaves, but then the winter came and she needed shelter. A kindly mouse let her stay with it, but it said,
"You will have to marry my friend, Mole, because I can't keep you for another winter."
The next day she went to see Mole. In one of the tunnels she found a sick bird and said,
"Poor thing, I will bury it."
Then she found out that it was still alive, and she cared for it until it was ready to fly. It flew off. That fall she nearly had to marry Mole. But then she heard a familiar tweet, 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 and an idea popped up into the bird's head.
"You can come down to the warm country,"
said the bird. So Thumbelina hopped on the bird's back and flew to the warm country. The people there were very, very nice, and welcomed her with open arms, and renamed her Erin. She married a prince and lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Goldilocks. She went for a walk in the forest. Pretty soon, she came upon a house. She knocked. When no one answered, she walked right in. At the table in the kitchen, there were 3 bowls of porridge. Goldilocks was hungry. She tasted the porridge from the first bowl.
"This porridge is too hot,"
she exclaimed. So, she tasted the porridge from the second bowl.
"This porridge is too cold,"
she said. So, she tasted the last bowl of porridge.
"This porridge is just right,"
she said happily, and she ate it all up. After she had eaten the 3 bears' breakfast, she decided she was feeling a little tired. So, she walked into the living room where she saw 3 chairs. Goldilocks sat in the first chair to rest her feet.
"This chair is too big,"
she exclaimed. So she sat in the second chair.
"This chair is too big too,"
she whined. So she tried the last chair, the smallest chair.
"This chair is just right."
She sighed. But just as she settled down into the chair to rest, it broke into pieces. Goldilocks was very tired by this time, so she went upstairs to the bedroom. She lay down in the first bed, but it was too hard. Then she laid in the second bed, but it was too soft. Then she lay down in the third bed, and it was just right. Goldilocks fell asleep. As she was sleeping, the 3 bears came home.
Someone's been eating my porridge,
Growled the Papa Bear.
"Someone's been eating my porridge,"
Said the Mama Bear.
"Someone has been eating my porridge."
Cried the baby bear. Someone's been sitting in my chair, growled the Papa Bear. Someone's been sitting in my chair, said the Mama Bear.
Someone's been sitting in my chair and broke it to pieces,
cried the Baby Bear. They decided to look around some more, and when they got upstairs to the bedroom, Papa Bear growled. Someone's been sleeping in my bed. Someone's been sleeping in my bed too, said Mama Bear.
Someone's been sleeping in my bed and she's still there,
exclaimed Baby Bear. Just then Goldilocks woke up and saw the three bears. She screamed, "Help!" and she jumped up and ran out of the room. Goldilocks ran down the stairs, opened the door, and ran away into the forest. And she never returned to the home of the three bears. The Frog Prince. Once upon a time there lived a princess who shone with such beauty that even the sun looked dim next to her. When the weather was hot, the princess would walk through the forest and sit in the shade by a stream. She took a golden ball to play with, and sat by the water, throwing it into the air and catching it, playing a simple game. But one day her hand slipped and the golden ball fell into the water. Poof! The princess sat there and cried louder and louder, as if her heart would break. Oh, she was very, very sad. After a while, a warty frog popped his head above the water.
Why are you crying?
He asked. Because I have dropped my golden ball into the stream and I can't get it back, sobbed the princess.
What if, may I ask you a question?
Said the frog. The princess looked quite puzzled.
What if, what will you give me if I fetch you your ball back?
Croaked the frog.
I will give you jewels and gold pearls. If you fetch back my golden ball, I will give you anything you want,
sniffed the princess through her tears. But the frog explained that he wasn't interested in treasures. Instead, he wanted the princess's love.
If you will love me and care for me, be my friend and play with me, let me eat from your plate and sleep on your pillow, then I will fetch you back your ball,
said the frog.
Yes, oh yes, oh, I promise, I promise that I will do all those things,
said the princess, but really she didn't mean what she said.
He is just a revolting frog,
she thought.
He will give me back my ball, and then I won't do any of those things.
The frog brought back the princess's ball. She took it from him and then ran back to the palace. That evening, as the royal family sat down to eat their dinner, there was a knock at the door. The princess went to see who it was. She was horrified. It was the very frog that had brought her the golden ball. He spoke the words to her again.
Let me in, oh princess my sweet. Don't forget your vow. Let me by your side, my dear. To your heart I vow.
But the princess slammed the door in the frog's face and hurried back to the table.
Who was that?
asked her father.
Oh, just a slimy frog,
replied the princess.
He would only fetch my ball for me if I promised to love him. How ridiculous to think that I should ever love a warty old frog. Yah!
A promise is a promise, said the king, who was a fair man. You must let him in and keep your promise. And so, much to the princess's dismay, the frog was invited in. The king commanded his daughter to keep her promise, and, although she found the frog quite disgusting, she had no choice but to obey her father. The princess allowed the frog to eat from her plate and sleep on her pillow. She even played games with him, but she could not bring herself to care for him or love him. The frog reminded her of the promise she had made to him, saying these words, "Love me true, O princess sweet. Don't forget your vow. Let me be your dear. You must kiss me now." But still the princess refused to kiss him. The frog followed the princess everywhere she went until she became quite angry with him.
Go away, you horrible beast!
She cried. But the frog stayed by her side night and day. One day, when the princess was in a particularly bad mood, she picked up the frog and hurled him across the room. He hit the wall and landed on the floor with a boof. He lay there, dazed, and had such a sad expression on his face that the princess felt really, really sorry for him and what she had done. She rushed over to where he lay, picked him up, and kissed him with true compassion. Suddenly, there was a flash of light, and the astonished princess watched on as the frog was transformed into a handsome prince. "My dear princess," said the prince, falling to his knees, "please be my wife." The princess, for sure, knew that she loved the prince, and that finally her promise was fulfilled. The prince and princess were married in a spectacular ceremony, and the bride shone more brightly than the sun. They lived happily ever after.